Let's dive into the really wild story of a plant that, weirdly enough, became a global superstar for one simple reason. It got banned. We're going to look at how a government's plan to make something disappear ended up putting a giant spotlight on it for the whole world to see. So this is the big question, isn't it? How on earth did making a plant illegal do the exact opposite of what was intended? How did it trigger this massive wave of global curiosity that turned it into a household name? It's a story of some seriously unintended consequences. And believe me, it is a strange story. It doesn't start thousands of years ago in some ancient text. Nope, its modern identity was forged by a single, huge decision made in the 20th century. So picture this. It's 1970, and the US government makes a monumental declaration. They put marijuana into what's called Schedule 1, their most restrictive category. This meant it was officially considered as dangerous as drugs like heroin. This wasn't just some minor rule. It was a massive statement to the world. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of making people afraid of it, this extreme classification did the complete opposite. It lit a fire of curiosity all around the globe. Suddenly, everyone was asking the same thing. Wait, what is this stuff that's supposed to be so incredibly dangerous? And that curiosity, it basically set the stage for decades of policy that had some, well, spectacular unintended consequences. You could call it a war on a plant that just completely backfired. So, right away, that Schedule I classification slammed the door shut on almost all scientific research. For decades, scientists couldn't really study it. Not its risks, not its potential benefits. Nothing. Then in the 80s, things escalated with super harsh sentencing laws that led to some truly bizarre situations. And this just perfectly captures how absurd it all got. It actually became a bit of a running joke. You could get an insane sentence for a tiny bit of marijuana, way, way harsher than for the same amount of a drug like cocaine. The focus was just completely lopsided. And this, right here, is probably the biggest unintended consequence of all. With law enforcement so laser-focused on marijuana, it created this massive blind spot. And who stepped into that blind spot? Powerful cartels, like Pablo Escobar's, who just flooded the country with billions of dollars worth of cocaine. Okay, so after being off limits to researchers for so long, the scientific community is finally playing catch-up. So let's take a look at what we're now learning about what this plant actually does. Right, so the first thing you need to know is that marijuana isn't just one thing. The plant has two main players that do totally different jobs. First, you've got THC. That's the psychoactive part, the stuff that creates the high. Then you've got CBD, which is non-psychoactive. That's the part people associate more with calming physical effects. The mix of these two completely changes the whole experience. So what's it actually doing in your brain? Well, it's not as simple as just slowing things down. A really good way to think of it is like a sound mixer at a concert. It's a modulator. It can turn the volume up on some signals, maybe making tastes or sounds more intense, while turning the volume down on others. It's all about remixing your brain signals. And this brings us to what is honestly the most critical part of this whole discussion. The effects of this plant, they're not one size fits all. It's very much a two-sided coin, and there's one single thing that determines which side you get. And that one absolutely critical factor, it's your age. More specifically, it's about whether your brain has finished developing, which scientists generally agree happens around age 25. That age is the dividing line, and it's the key to understanding all the risks and all the benefits. So, let's talk about the developing brain first. For anyone under 25, the science is becoming really clear. Regular use can actually interfere with the brain's final wiring process. We're talking about things like a lower ability to learn, memory problems, and becoming more emotionally volatile. It can even make it harder to solve complex problems. And the risk of psychological dependence is way higher. And the younger you are, the greater the potential harm. But then you flip that coin. For adults, people with fully mature brains, the story can be totally different. From a medical standpoint, it's proven to be really effective for managing chronic pain, things like arthritis or back injuries. For a lot of people, it's a real alternative to powerful opioids. And it's versatile. You can use it in edibles, oils, or even as a topical CBD oil you can rub right onto a sore joint. All of this leads us to the final, obvious question. After everything we've talked about, what's the verdict? Is this plant good or is it bad? And the clearest answer science gives us is it's just not that simple. The plant itself isn't really good or bad. Its effect is all about context. For a teenager, the risks are very real. For an elderly person dealing with chronic pain, the benefits could be life-changing. The answer always depends on who is using it and for what reason. And there's one last crucial warning we need to talk about. Because of its long and complicated illegal history, the unregulated market is a huge danger. Illicit stuff is often laced with dangerous synthetic chemicals or other drugs to make it more potent or addictive, and that's where the real danger often lies. So, for decades, this plant was famous simply because it was forbidden. Now, that's all changing, and the research is finally ramping up. It just leaves you with one big question. What other secrets, both good and bad, are we about to uncover about the world's most controversial plant?